getting organized. Let's give her a round.
I'm Mary Jean. I was the 4-H leader when we started this restoration project. That's my claim to fame. And then I'm going to introduce our present executive board of Bennington is Chris Sage. His great-great-grandpa built the school. Wow. Cool. And his son,
I'm right
seated in one of the desks is Blaine, so we got like 5 generations of this family still here in the And my last name is Sage, Chris and Blaine. Notice this road here as you go out. Yes, and our other board member is Marlon Hull. He lives right down the road here. He was an alumni of our school. Is that cool or what? Yeah, he gets it. And then I want to introduce a few more folks. Maynard is my husband. He puts up with me and he has to help carry chairs and tables. And our daughter Becca, she was one of the 4-H kids. So she has 4-H stories about redoing this. And her 2 daughters, Abby and Anna. And they just like to come. So, and Marlon, Janie's wife, Marlon's better half, Janie. Did I miss anyone? I think I caught y'all. And welcome to Bennington number 4. We are so tickled you are here because we get to have you in our school and we get to tell you a story, and we're just thankful for having you here. Country school, most of you know it, is before most of our times. Not all of our times, but this little school sat on this corner since there was an original school that was like 1867, and it was deteriorating. We really don't have any pictures of that school, but in 1911, the township, not the township, it was a small portion of the township, like a 4-mile radius, said, we're going to build a new school. And I'm sure they all came and built this school. And one of Chris's grandpa says, and they have really good records, but he says they didn't really talk about building that, except that they pulled this school, the first school, to the north and started building this one. And then about Christmas, he figures 1911, the kids got to move into the new school. So ain't that cool? Ain't that a good story? And very visual. So our accolades to this Bennington number 4 is it's still sitting on the original property, and it's sitting right next to cornfields and bean fields and working farms and dusty roads. That's our best thing we have to offer when people come, and that's also our hardest part of this is it's a challenge to get people to come here. We're not part of a city or a municipality, so we really have to scrounge to get people to drive gravel roads. But once they're here, they all say, this is so nice, this is so sweet, you should. Yeah, we can talk until the cows come home, but it doesn't bring people to see the school. I put a few old pictures from when the kids were starting this process on the desk. They're still labeled when we used to do picnics with the 4-H kids. You can pass them around. And then I put a couple newsletters, the recent newsletter. There's a few, and I think Bill was going to make a few more copies. Did you? Okay. So this.
No, I haven't, but I will.
Oh. Yeah, and there's a few on the on your tables if you want them. It just says a little bit. And then there's another postcard there that we just made that this year. It's Becca did it for me. It just says, you want an adventure with your kids or your grandkids or a school group? Call us. We want kids in the school, and we want to showcase the schoolhouse. So that's what we sent to teachers, libraries. I put them wherever I could put them around the small towns around here, just to get people here. And my best, we're pretty low tech, our committee. My best advice, I was at a picnic in Waverly, and I was telling this mom with 5 kids about our school, and she says, are you on the internet? Oh, heck. She said, you know, if you were on the internet, I could just send this to to 5 of my friends and we'll call you. Okay, so that was, oh yeah, we need to have a social presence. We are on the internet through Silos and Smokestacks, which is a big governing body about Iowa agriculture. But people don't necessarily see us on that website. So we gotta do better on that for next year. Anyway, so I just wanna tell you how this school was. So in 1955, the schoolhouse, you all know it if you're into schools in Iowa, they wanted schools closed by 55 to 60 was when the last ones closed, because there weren't enough kids in the rural areas to support a teacher. Yeah, Bill.
Can I interrupt a minute?
Yeah, anybody can interrupt.
We, Iowa still has 7 operating one-room schools. And they're not far away. Jesup operates 4 one-room schools for Amish teachers. But the story gets even better. They worked out an arrangement. Finally, it took a while, but any certified licensed teacher could teach Amish in their one-room school. And so the principal at Jesup Elementary School, who's still there, still supervising the Jesup Elementary School, the Jesup Amish schools, asked his teachers, would you like to teach the Amish children? And 90% of the elementary teachers at Jesup raised their hand. Yay, we want to do it. And why do they want to do it? There's no discipline problems. The Amish children aren't putting the girl's hair in the inkwell and slapping. Well, anyway, it gets even better and bigger. Teachers with MA degrees, ranging from the school librarian to the gifted and talented teacher, they're eager to teach the Amish children. Why? Because the Amish kids want to learn as much as they can. They have a powerful motivation. If they can't read the Bible by the time they graduate from 8th grade, and this young man can verify it, they're damned to go to hell. So that's the most powerful motivation I know of. But the kids want to do it. The parents want the kids to learn as much as they can. And then the kids are free to go where they want. But anyway, 7 operating one-room schools. The school at Jesup and Wapsie Valley are unique in America and Canada. No place else do we have certified teachers teaching Amish children. And it even gets better, and then I'll sit down and shut up. Surrounding the 7 public one-room schools for Amish children. And I think, Mark, you can correct me on this, but I think there's 13 or 14 Amish and Mennonite schools, all Amish schools that surround the public one-room schools. Again, no place in America where we have this dual system of public, private, one-room schools and public one-room schools taught by Amish teachers. And I said it gets bigger and better, and that's the last 2 sentences. Of course, they ran out of room because a lot of Amish kids and their parents, well, we like these teachers, we like the school. So now it's more than a one-room school, it's kind of a 3-room school. They've got the original school and the wing here and the wing here. And the kids kind of move around wherever they want to go. And with the teachers, a unique educational experience for kids 5 to 12. Only place in Canada, only place in America. And as I travel around and tell people they want to come to Jesup and Wapsie Valley, and they'll want to come here and learn what she's doing, this wonderful meal, and we're lobbying this guy. We want him to bring the national conference back to Dunkerton. And we'll start on the UNI campus.
Really?
Okay.
He is a wealth of knowledge. You're all in the conference. You know he wrote this book several years ago, all about Iowa's country schools, and I got a copy on
Okay.
Amazon.
Well, let me add one more footnote.
Good book.
This young woman back here beside my wife, she traveled around and followed what I did and updated it. A few, 10 years later, 20 years later, 10.
2013.
Her book is published in 2013.
This is 1998.
Yeah, so that was outdated.
2013,
Right.
2023.
2023, we have authors.
And,
Are we lucky or what?
and she has her books for sale at the Dunkerton Library, so you don't have to rush down there to get it today, but anytime you go to the Dunkerton Library.
I want you to know that Bennington #4 is in the book.
I want your Bennington #4. It was a red 3-ring binder. It was about the 4-H club. It had pictures. Dawn Best gave me it.
Oh, okay.
And we actually scanned it, and it's online. So if you go to DunkertonHistory.com, you'll see all of your names, all the information.
It kind of is one of those projects that takes on a life of its own. Once you start this,
Until she gets back.
anyway, so this little school, we lived down the road, we'd fly by this school, and it was very boarded up, and it had hay in it, and you might have saw some pictures of that on the sign. And my sister kept saying, you gotta do something with that school, Mary Jean, you gotta do something with that school. And okay, and I was one of the leaders. We had like 40 kids in our 4-H club, huge amount of children and families. And I went and talked to Steve Sage, my old neighbor, and I said, what do you think? Can we do something with the schoolhouse? And God bless Steve Sage, who is Chris's dad. He sat there and he said, well, Mary Jean, I've looked at that schoolhouse for 30 years and I want to do something with it. I think it would be great, but I have no money to put towards such a project. Okay. But we got permission, so okay. And in my youngness of being a mom with 5 kids and 35 4-H kids, I thought, well, we'll just paint it. It'll sure look better because it's gray and worn out, and it'll just be pretty then. So it erupted from that with all these kids and their parents. If you are doing something and you have children or a youth club involved, you got it, because they got parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins. And wow, it kind of just went like this. Well then, okay, the other leaders said, how are you going to do this? I don't know. We'll just get paint. Okay, so it kind of erupted into Lutheran Brotherhood said, a lady in the neighborhood, the kids went out and talked at different social events that said we want to do this. And a lady from Lutheran Brotherhood said, you know, we have a teen service program, and it's we will give you $500 to do something like this. And she was so sweet. She says, but we need some pictures with Lutheran Brotherhood shirts on the kids. I said, we can do that. We got Lutherans in our club. God bless the Lutherans. And it was so sweet, because here we are. Lutheran Brotherhood became thrivent.
Yes.
And they gave us yes, and we're all supposed to be sporting these shirts, but we kind of, Maynard and Marlin, they sported them. To advertise this, because this is a wonderful thing for youth, for probably the community, not just youth, but it was that $500. And then it got a little bigger, and some of the neighbors said, well, what are you going to do, Mary Jane? Well, we're just going to paint it. We can just paint it. And then I was lucky enough to work with a visionary who was 60. I was 40. And she said, just a minute, I want to talk to you. Okay, drive down to talk to her. And then she says, I think we got to look at this a little bigger because this is something worthwhile. Oh, okay, and so then she got on board and she talked to a painter, a old hippie painter guy that restored things. I didn't have this expertise, but she did. And she said, John Dutcher wants to come and talk to the kids. He said he'd give you all the paint at his cost, which was a paint company paint, quality, if he can teach the kids how to prepare the wood and preserve it. Okay. The families were so agreeable. It was a different time. It was 25 years ago. We didn't have thousands of commitments every night. It was this dusty little road. So, okay, when do you want to come? John Dutcher said he'll come Tuesday. Okay, I'll get the kids, and no texting, call. We're going to meet at the school. We're having a paint out. Bring a paintbrush. Good old John Dutcher. He was a gem. He was this hippie throwback, long-haired guy. Came in a big old van, paint spattered clothes, pulls out a whole scaffolding. Oh yeah, we're going to need scaffolding. Gave all the kids white painter hats. And we started, and it was like, and he talked to us, and of course the parents were all gleaning this education too, which we didn't know this was all really free information to tell us. We used 14 gallons of primer on the four sides. There's an old picture there. There's a couple really old ones on the outside. You can pass them around. They are real. It was really great. And 10 gallons of paint. Had he not been there to show us, so we had probably 8 or 9 paint outs. Like come at 6 o'clock, and we paint till 8, and then we call neighbors to bring food, because if you feed them, they will come. You know? Yeah. This is Iowa. And we're gonna start cleaning our brushes at 7:30, and then after it got all this commotion here, people would drive by. What are you doing? Why don't you come? You went to school. So then we'd have alumni come and talk about my kids. They kind of knew a little how it was without electricity, but talk about this group. This is my next generation. What do you mean you didn't have cell phone? What do you mean you didn't have internet? And it was like, they were so intrigued with these men and women that talked to them about, I think Marlon said this. Somebody said, how did you get to school? And Marlon said, well, it wasn't like today. Our parents didn't take us in a car anywhere. We walked to school. And one little boy said, well, did you ever get to ride your horse or something? Because we're thinking covered wagon, but it really wasn't that era. And he says, yeah, I would ride my pony, but then he bucked me off and he'd run home and I'd still have to run. So just sweet, sweet stories that came out of this. What did you have for lunch? Oh, our mom, you know the stories, made us this wonderful homemade bread sandwich with some meatloaf or an egg. And did you ever have hot lunch? Yeah, we put soup on the stove. Yeah, it was just such a different time. We couldn't even fathom going back to that sweetness. Although it probably wasn't so sweet. It was a lot of hard work. The kids milked cows and did chores before they came to school, and they got out and they went back and they worked, and that was their life. So school probably was fun with all that. But I meandered. Anyway, so we got the permission to do it, and then in 1997, we got this grant. We put some kids in Lutheran Brotherhood shirts, and it took off, and we painted it. But by the next year, my visionary named JoAnn Kramer, she worked for AEA 7, which is education, and she knew grant writers, and she just knew how to make this explode to more than just a little school on the corner. So now we have this interior that is full of hay scraps and raccoon droppings and everything else that could get in. And we got that cleaned out, and then she said, well, we need the state architect to come. I didn't even know we had a state architect. No, they're gonna come, and he's gonna look around at all of it. And by then, I wasn't in on that meeting, but he came and he looked all around like you guys did outside and coming, and he said, wow, this is a very proud little German school. And the reason I say that, because the bell tower is very ornate. That is not a normal school, a country school, that ornateness of that bell tower. And the bell is a 30-gallon bell. That was the biggest bell in the township. There were 9 schools, but this little community, he said they were a proud little German community that is shown by the evidence of this work. The corners on the ceiling corners, that was not a norm. This fancy work on top of all the windows and the woodwork, that was an added little doodah that these proud German settlers put in here for us. And all that is original. That was all here. The floor is not original, but they researched it. I mean, there was flooring in here, but it was pretty dry rotted. And so when the interior came, the kids could clean it. We had to kind of keep watching that. They weren't going to get mold or asbestos. There was no paint left on anything, so it wasn't that kind of problem, but to be careful for children. So, so that work got done in '98, always thinking about kids, but we had a whole bunch of senior 4-H members, so okay, we gotta get them, keep them involved. So 5 of them took on leadership projects. One of them did oral histories on all the alumni, and that book is there. And I think we were expecting something wonderful out of that. We got wonderful history, it's right here on the desk. But it was all, well, what did you do after school? I went home and did chores. What did you, what did you have for lunch? A homemade bread sandwich and butter. Or, you know, we thought it was gonna be this wonderful romantic Little House on the Prairie stories. But one of the kids did oral history. Another one, he loved horticulture. He researched what trees were here back in 1920 and 30 and 40. They were all soft elms or maples, soft maples. So he got a little $300 grant from Pioneer Hybrid, and we planted trees. Another girl, she said, well, the visionary says, we gotta get this out more. Could somebody write a newsletter? And this girl, she could type and write. We had computers. And she hooked up with the Waterloo Courier, and they helped her formulate a newsletter. And we still send the newsletter. Again, we should be doing this online, but we mail hard copies, as you can see on the table there. But there's faster and better ways. It's just that our committee is not there. We're content to type and fold and stick. So, so that goes out every year, or maybe every other year. It depends what we have to do. And then another girl took on restoring an outhouse. A boy and a girl took on restoring. They had a girl's outhouse and a boy's outhouse. And so she did that. So all this evolved into higher level, and we gotta finish the inside here. But because the kids couldn't do it, they wanted the kids involved, we held breakfast fundraisers for money, but the contractors did this. We needed to get cedar shingles back on. And so, oh wow, how are we gonna get money for that? So Chris was on the board at the time. He has a good story about cedar shingles. So
when we got grant money, we didn't get as much as what we thought we were gonna get. So I called a shingle maker out in Canada, and well, I called a couple of them. And one guy that I started talking with happened to be in 4-H. And so he made us a deal. We had Warren Transport, because they were taking tractors out to Canada. They would backhaul the shingles. They dropped them off at the warehouse where I work at, and then Mary Jean's sons and I brought them out here, and then, I can't remember who, Bob Sells, a guy from Cedar Falls, was the one that put the shingles on, the original time. But it was, the more people you let know that the 4-H kids were behind it, no one would say no. And that was even, that was nice, even with the flooring, the plaster walls, you let them know that the 4-H kids were behind it, and it just made it so much nicer.
It was just, it's like all of you in your restoration project, it kind of takes on a life of its own, and hopefully you journal it, because, you know, your memory's as good as as the time allows it to stay that good, you know, but, so with the exterior done, it's looking good. We put up a sign, Save Our Heritage, Bennington, you saw some of the signs there. So we got notice now, but now, I mean, within a year after painting, we had an executive committee, which was the landowner, a 4-H leader, a few neighbors and alumni. So then we would meet almost monthly. Where are we at? And some of this is where we were at. Right now we're still working on Steve Sage's land, his family's land and his building. So we kind of need to figure out how to get this onto the Bennington School property and insurance. So someone said we need to incorporate it. This is visionary work, not my work. Okay, and someone said, I have an attorney, he'll look at it and see if we can't get the laws of incorporation for Bennington School number 4. And all this has to get through also the landowner, through Steve and his family, that this is what's happening, to take some of the liability off of them, the family, and start paying up some insurance for us, and just to become an entity. And in the same time, someone said, we need to be a nonprofit. Okay, I didn't know about all this. My visionary, she's the one that started this all in action. In the meantime, we're all writing and looking at grants, because this is far from finished. So then we did get incorporated, and we also were able to become nonprofit status.
501c3.
501c3, which is what we all need if you're going to get grant money from anything federal or state. You have to be a nonprofit. And then about that same time, this is all in about a 3-year time period, because now we're on the inside, we got involved with a local I did, the visionary and the others, got involved with you and I. One of the Bennington schools is sitting up at UNI, and I think it's by the Tall Grass Prairie. I can't say I've ever been there.
Yes, that's it.
Yes. So we always heard about this Bennington school that went there. Bennington schools were well preserved, and there's several around this neighborhood as museums and school houses on public grounds. But so this historian came out, and he looked at it, and he talked to the kids. And he's the one that also said, you gotta get the history, you gotta talk to people who went here. So he kind of helped that boy. And then in this hubbub of this, he says, you really need, someone said, you need to get on the National Registry of Historical Places. Oh, okay, how do you do that? Well, the man's name was Bob Neymeyer.
Yes.
Good old Bob.
He published my book.
Oh, well, he is a man with his fingers touch many projects, and probably some of yours. He wrote the application to get on the National Register of Historical Places. And it's, you know, where you go look it up. But and I've used some of his words to write grants. Because we can, I guess. I don't know. But this is what he says. It's just so sweet. No, hold on. Hang on a minute. He talks about the uniqueness that this still sits on the property, and he says, there had been a school at this crossroads, Sage and Bennington Road, since the 1880s. But in 1911, the directors, flush with the wealth from the most prosperous era in farming, decided to construct a new school. It has flush with prosperity, yes. In order to demonstrate their success and in response to other schools with bell towers, they adorned the building with a tower, a tin ceiling, and an attic. There was another unique feature of this school. There was no windows on the north side, but they did have windows on both the east and west, which a lot of school, if you look around, everything's a little different, but the north wind comes, so no wind coming in from the north like that. Here's the cutest. The school, built on the crest of a gentle slope, was vulnerable to the cold northwestern winter winds, and the lack of windows on that side helped to reduce the cold. Is this Little House on the Prairie? That's all I have to relate it to. But, yeah. And that it has the chimney. It sits on a gentle slope. The bell tower can be seen for about 5 miles, which it was a big deal. A lot of us have mellowed into, oh, it's fine, but that proud German heritage. And when I give talks to kids, I say, schools were one of the first public buildings that went up in Iowa. It was a big deal to put a school up, and everyone used it for maybe church services there. And when I tell the children this, I says, because those parents, they wanted their kids to speak English and to be able to read and write. If they were coming from Germany and they still spoke German or Dutch, it just takes you back, doesn't it, to cross the Mississippi, and here's this great state with all this tall grass, and wow, I think we're gonna settle here. We'll build, we'll settle and we'll build. So it's hard to paint that picture to children nowadays because everything's so animated and quick, don't we all know that? Anyway, so we get on the National Registry of Historical Places, and you know what that means. Everything has to be historical. Everything needs to go back to how it was. And we're inside. Some of these desks were here. The school desk was original. The chairs original. Some of the desks, the resuscitation bench, but they were scrounging all over. And then we had this fireplace. This is not original. Actually, when the school closed, they had put in an LP burner. This is the last picture. And here's Marlin. Okay? First one on the row here. Our sweet Marlin. So they had put some kind of LP in there.
No, that was oil.
Oil. Oh, my mistake. Oil. Thank you. What do I know? Anyway. So we got these desks. They were in great disrepair. Farmer said, I'll take them all apart, number them, label them. If you kids want to sand them. And we did, and he put them back together, and we varnished and painted them at somebody's machine shed. It was a labor of love, all of it. There was something else I wanted to tell you. Oh, about the Historical Society, the history. When you when you get to have that title as being on the National Registry, you have to take it back to the era you want it to. And we certainly didn't want to take it to 1911 because they didn't have any lights. So we needed to have electricity, and these lights are original. They were in here. And so we took it to 1940 to 1950, or 1955. I think it's a decade you get to do it. So we could keep our electricity, and that was a good thing. And then one of these might be original, but the visionary, my visionary neighbor, she was able to locate the rest of these oil lamps and had them mounted, and we're really lucky for that. The fireplace, another committee hunted and hunted. Do you know that story?
We found it at an antique store, and then we had it
Finished on.
refinished.
Yeah, and so then when they put it in, they double walled the chimney. So it does work. Our insurance company prefers we don't even talk about having a wood stove. And I think in the last 20 years, we've probably lit it 3 times. It puts out the heat. But it's, this is a cinder box. And even the committee now says if something happens, would we ever rebuild? And we couldn't rebuild it. so we have to protect it. So that was in 90s to 2000s, and now we fast forward 20 years. I'm back on the schoolhouse committee. I had a reprieve, but I love it. And we need new siding because it's really deteriorating, and we need new shingles. And so the shingles were about 24 years old from when we did it.
Yes.
Yeah? Not that old?
No, keep on.
Oh, anyway, well, we'll write grants. There's grants out there, and I'm writing grants, and we are not even considered. Because a lot of grants aren't going to do maintenance. They're not gonna put brick and mortar take care of brick and mortar, as some of you know. And 20 some years ago, the kids were the driving force. We need the kids. That was what grants were about. Kid involvement, community, and maybe they are now, but every grant we wrote, it was just like, oh, what am I doing? I'm not writing. Well, first, I'm not a professional grant writer. That's who you need on your team, unless one of you are good at that, and I thought I was pretty good at that, making words and telling the story, but we got one grant that was like 3 years ago, and it was from a local agency in Waterloo called Guernsey Foundation. Thank you. It was a family. Their last name was Guernsey. It was a family grant, and they give out quite a bit of money, and they look at small organizations that aren't going to qualify for federal grants or historical grants. I should back this up. The committee's knowing we need to do something because if we lose the roof, we were leaking and we needed to do something. So when I went online to do the Iowa Historical Grant out of Des Moines, there's taxpayer money that is big pots of money in every capital. Yes, hit me.
Iowa is the only state in America that has an Iowa Country School Grants Program funded by the state. And anybody that wants to preserve a historic country school, records, history, anything related to country schools can apply for the grant. The deadline still hasn't been announced, but the woman that administers the Iowa Country School Grants Program is Teresa. Oh, what's her name, Faith? Graduated from Lutheran College. Kristen Vander Molen. And I will, as soon as we get the details, and the details won't be released until after January, and then the deadline, I don't know when that'll be. But, well, somebody asked a few years ago, well, is anybody applying for the Country School Grants Program because we only had 5 or 6? And somebody on the board says, well, this is kind of a down year. So, in order to make sure we never get into that situation, we want you and anybody sitting in this room to apply for an Iowa Country School grant. And then they can't say, well, there isn't enough interest, we're going to flood them. And they won't have enough money. No, I'm serious. They won't have enough money to fund them all. So it'll be on a priority basis. But nobody's ever going to ask the question again if we keep this going. There doesn't seem to be enough interest in Iowa country schools. Yes, there is. We got more than we can deal with.
It is a good grant. And it's a simple form. Some of these through the state are pages and pages.
You do need a professional historical architect.
Right, so as we got into the
That
one
was
thought,
our problem.
yeah, it was gonna be 40,000 to shingle and side this. And, oh wow, we just looked at each other and we thought, And so I started writing this grant, and then it gave all the requirements. One was, you need a historical contractor or a historical architect on your committee to step by step make sure this goes with the National Registry of what you've. Okay, so
Requirements.
yeah, the requirements. So we hunted, and Marlon he's good to track things down, and we got an appointment with a historical architect in Cedar Falls, and he knew his stuff, and we already had bids, but they weren't historical contractors, they were the Amish contractors.
Even better.
Yes, but that may or may not take you back to the correct history. So we the grant was so huge, and we didn't have the funds to pay a grant writer. And the historical contractor says, the truth is, there's about 6 to 8 grant writers in Iowa that write historical grants, and they usually get the money. And we're not talking 40,000. He said 40,000. That's not very much. It all depends where you're looking from, doesn't it? Because they're doing whole story, what did he say? Keep going. He's winding me up. I know.
They're not giving it time. People are running. They're getting ideas.
He's winding me up. Anyway, so that was kind of a roadblock. We did talk to the guy, and we actually talked to a grant writer that came and talked to me as a family member. And boy, she had the words and she knew, but I don't know. I just didn't know if we were.
Well, she was the one that helped with the Guernsey, if I remember right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But anyway, so this sweet little Guernsey Foundation gave us $20,000. Well, we got half of it. Now we got to get to work. I want to back up a little bit when I was the first 5 years on this committee, because this is a good story. All my kids are one. I have lots of kids. They all want.
Make the kids be quiet.
The adults want to learn.
So my visionary to either get the nonprofit or to get us incorporated says, it was Eddie Sage, he says, well, we need $1,000, and then we can get all this taken care of legally and the correct way. And the meeting was over, and I stayed back, and I said, JoAnn, I don't know how we're ever gonna get $1,000. Maynard and I we can't even give you $100 right now. And my visionary, who was 60, which I am past now, but difference where you're at, raising 5 kids, buying what you need to buy, she says to me, oh, Mary Jean, I'll call 10 people. Okay, but we can't be on the list. And wow, now we're the ones that can give that kind of money. So it's just so different what you're bringing to the table. I'm bringing kids and energy and enthusiasm, but not money. So it's just kind of where you're at. So this 20,000, our committee all looked at each other, well, we need $20,000 more. So we sent a newsletter, and we probably got 7,000 or 8,000 ballpark. And then we had, and with it, we have a picnic, and people just love to come here. They just love the sweetness of sitting on the lawn and having a picnic. And then, we maybe got more than that. Maybe we got 13,000, and then, so we're still short $10,000. And then the Sage family, who the property sits on, they said they would give the rest of it.
Oh my
So, wow. I know, and we couldn't be more sweet. I have a story about Steve. Steve Sage was my neighbor my whole life. He was 83, maybe when he passed away. He passed away 2 years ago. He loved this school. He lived across the road. Whenever I came here to do something or fix the blinds or whatever, here come this dog, and it would be Steve Sage driving with his tractor or his pickup, and he'd just always scare the bejesus out of me. Good old Steve Sage. And I babysat their kids, and they've been part of my life. And now, okay, now he passed away 2 years ago 3 years ago in August. we're gonna have our wake service here at the schoolhouse. You think that's okay? Oh my gosh, Chris, what the perfect place to have the wake service and a tribute to your dad and his grandpa. So it was just like full circle. It's funny how things, so now my kids and my grandkids say, maybe we can do yours here, Grandma. You just never know. You know, we're not getting out of here. And we're pulling you all behind us. It's the way it is. Anyway, so with this historical grant, you just have to, as all of you know, Dunkerton's been working on getting grants and coverage and money, but you jump through lots of hoops to get money. They just don't even, here's 10,000. Except the sages did that for us. Anyway, do you have any questions or? Yeah, Dennis.
So we're in the restoration phase.
Yes.
I'm curious about the colors. Is the green and the yellow, was that, or that's original?
That's original. There was 13 coats of paint on this board. The other part, when you're historical, hang on a minute, Julie. Hang on a minute.
Can you get there?
They took all the baseboard out and took it to ye old strippery. Anyway, but the visionary says you need to save some of this, and this might have been some trim, I don't know, but it says this board should be placed in artifacts, an artifacts plastic covered box. Well, it's sitting on. I know. It shows original green paint plus layers of paint and old wood from a trim board.
Do you happen to know if that was universal in Bennington, or was that specific?
I don't know if it was universal, but most of the schools I go to have this. I think it was, right, you could buy gallons of it for this township. I don't know, but anyway. And so we recited a lot of the school, and Chris can talk, will you tell a little bit about trying to keep it historical, but we did not get the historical architect or contractor. We got the money, and then when we went to look at supplies, you tell them, Chris.
Teresa, how are we doing on time?
We're about there.
2:30.
Oh, 2:30, okay.
We got plenty of time.
It's 1:47.
Okay.
47.
Even not going through the state architect, I mean, everything pretty much is done back to where it was before. The wood shingles, I mean, the underlayment, we did put underlayment on it, they didn't have it way back when, but it'll last longer now. Even the wood shed, it's new wood, but it's the same type of German
Shiplap.
that we got.
Did you replaster the walls?
Yep, they have there's a board behind it, but then they cow-coated it, and it's, an 1/8 of an inch thick of plaster. So it's just like what it was before.
Did you have to worry about the lead? You said there wasn't a lot of paint in here?
They tested it and we didn't have.
Didn't have lead? Okay.
Some of the people might have heard, but can you explain your son's connection to our project?
Okay, well, I've been listening to Teresa and Julie, and talk about a life of its own, that Dunkerton Historical Society. Only what they have is technology, and we can watch it on the internet. So they brought in an old Bennington school. The oldest disrepaired school at that site was a Bennington school, and Julie and her husband came, and they were looking at these windows. These windows were made, we had a shell of a window way back, and the Amish made these out of wood. So they are just like it was. They stick too. But, Julie was saying we need wood windows for that school to make it architecturally right. And our son is a shop teacher at Denver. Yeah, you all know it, you're all old enough. If you find that person that's kind of quirky, that thinks out of the box, hang on to him because you want him on your team. He is a guy that knows how to, or a girl that knows how to do stuff. They're They're just not gonna go buy vinyl, because that's all they can find. So they talked to our son is Mike, he's a shop teacher at Denver. He can do about anything. I don't brag on my son, he just thinks outside the box, and he likes to challenge. So they said, they're looking at the windows, Julie and her husband, and says, what do you think? I said, go talk to him, he knows stuff. So he's made the first prototype. He got it done. You know, you're working with senior boys, you got 50 minutes of class time in between pep rallies and everything else. But I think
We
he's
got a picture, yeah.
the first one done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, and they need 12 or
14
14.
sessions.
They'll have their work cut out for them.
He says before Thanksgiving.
Oh my gosh. And the hooch was, he shows me it because I'm interested. I said, how are you gonna put glass in there? Because there's a lot to this.
Right.
Hoop.
And
You know,
ours
they
have-
make it go up and down too.
Yeah.
But he said, no, that won't be a problem. Those
Ours have
guys-
4 panes in each sash
Four
too.
panes,
Mhm.
yeah, which will be ours, like the, kind of like this, ain't it?
Well, there's 8 total.
Oh.
Yeah, so
oh,
4 and 4.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, so anyway, you just have to keep talking, because there's some old guy that would like to take, or young guy that would like to take that project on. And people are very giving. We're a good heart in Iowa to be generous and, yeah. Any other questions? I talk long. I love this place.
We're learning, everybody in this room is learning, including
It's a
me,
story.
including Mark.
Yeah, it's a story. I have 4 teachers. We have 5 kids and 5 in-laws. 4 of them are teachers. I don't know if you are teachers or educators.
Thank God for every teacher in America.
Yes.
In Iowa.
Yes. I'm not a teacher, I'm a nurse. So I couldn't teach. I talk too fast. And I'm much too excitable to lead 25 kids down the hall. But this is a funny thing, but I bring my grandkids here for a day at country school. That gets 18 kids in the school, okay? And they love it. They do it for me anyway, and we have fun. And then, and Marlon comes and talks. If I can get other small groups in here of kids, what a way to show them, not just hear it, but show it, and sit in the desk, and what are these holes for? And just, my teachers gave me how to run a classroom, and she says, put a problem on the board for every kid, and then when they come in, tell them to find their desk, look around, and then have their name on the board, and they go do 2 problems. Oh my gosh, they just love writing on the chalkboard. Don't they though? Wouldn't we all like to when we were in school? So, but the cute part, what my kids say is, I wish we could open this school up and just teach our kids and our cousins.
Yes.
I said, I know.
Well,
I know.
they have the schools open in Iowa
I know.
called Montessori. They replicate the curriculum in the one-room school,
Yeah.
Montessori schools.
So it just, things, you know, it evolves and changes, and things are gonna swing back, that it isn't gonna be behaviors. I hope so. Because I have a granddaughter going into education.
No, we need teachers. They can't hire enough teachers in Iowa to keep the schools open. Go! And I hope the younger one goes. UNI is the best teacher training institution in Iowa.
Well, I'm actually at Iowa State right now.
I have one quick story. Our son, a couple of our sons farm organic. So they don't have a lot of land, but they have a lot of work. And they sell their hay, because you have to have a crop rotation when you're doing organic. They sell their hay to several different families over in Amish country, where you're going, okay? And we've kind of befriended, especially one of the families, Freeman and his gang. And so their oldest daughter is Catherine. And when we were over there in May, and I said, school's out, huh, Catherine? Because Catherine's been teaching, and she is 16. I said, well, how do you get to teach, Catherine? She said, well, if I got my story right, I said, I thought they were all Wapsie Valley and Jesup public schools. And she said, yeah, but there's 3 to 4 schools that are Amish owned.
Right.
And the Amish people don't have to have a teacher's license, and they can teach in that school. I said, okay, now that makes more sense to me, because they always have a big auction at the produce auction for Amish schools. But I didn't know that was not the public schools. So then she said, you wanna come and see my school? Sure. She said, it's all closed now. Okay. And so we drove about 3.5 miles down this road, and the school, I said, is it locked? Yeah, but I got a key, okay. And it was this very, very old building, and the grass was all grown up around it, you know, and it was fenced with woven wire fencing. I said, wow, we need to get a mower in here. And she says, oh, we'll just put some horses in it. And oh my God, I love you. And then, so we go in this building, and she said, we just reopened it because there were more kids in this 2 miles. So we just reopened it. It's been closed for about 10 years. Everything was so very, very old and not brand new anything. I mean, this is, everybody that comes here, even alumni say, this looks better than when we went to school here. Well, of course, it's been well loved. But so I really admire the Amish to have this. And then and the desk, and it was just very sweet, but very old. So, yeah, so maybe you'll get to see one of those schools, the Amish schools. I don't know.
We have breakfast,
Or supper. You're gonna have
supper and an Amish bakery.
I know, we did that last month. You'll love it. You'll love it. Thank you for coming.
Whoa!
Thank you.
It's not even 2 o'clock yet. Okay, anybody in this room that felt they learned something, lay a bill. Or, yes, you need more money. Now, listen.
Actually, we're